What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the Combat Corporation, your source for combat sports. I'm your host, Al the Postmaster Tomorrow. Today, I have a gear review on the Fuji version of the PFL fight gloves. Alright folks, as always I am incredibly excited to bring you yet another gear review, as today we have the Fuji version of the PFL fight gloves. And I know what you're thinking, just about a month or two ago I reviewed the PFL fight gloves. Yes I did, but that was the Century version of the PFL fight glove. And although I like that glove a lot, we are going to review the older version, which is made by Fuji Sports. So Fuji is a big Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brand, a submission grappling brand. They sell a lot of mats that you see a lot of gyms use. They're kind of like zebra mats. And then they also make gis, rash guards, spats, boxing gear, MMA gear, kickboxing gear as well. I know a lot of my teammates use Fuji MMA gloves actually, and they really like them. And I can see why, because this is actually a pretty well-made glove. I was really surprised, and this is actually an extension to a video that I made in September of last year, where a lot of people were asking for these. In fact, someone commented the other day, and I was like, "How did you know I was going to review these like tomorrow?" And it was kind of funny. So this is July 3rd as of this recording, and we're coming up on September, where I reviewed all major fight promotions gloves. And what I did as a professional athlete, whenever I fight, I take the gloves out the night of the fight, and then you try them on, break them in for an hour or two, then you go fighting them. And that's what I did with all those gloves. So I did those with a bunch of different promotions, the major promotions in the world, and I've reviewed almost all of them. All I have left is these and the Owano fight gloves. I'm also going to add the RDX fight gloves to them because they work really well. But as far as fight gloves, let's see, I did the UFC official fight gloves, Ryzen fight gloves, One Championship fight gloves. I've done the Bellator, one of the Bellators, so the Everlast Power Lock. I also did the PFL Centuries. Now we're going into the PFL by Fuji. And Fuji actually produced the gloves for the PFL when they were still known as WSOF. So they have been the producer of the PFL for quite a while actually, but now Fuji just sticks to their Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu stuff. They're still actually a pretty good company. You can actually still buy the PFL fight gloves off their website. They're just severely discounted now, which is actually pretty good. I bought these in, let's see, like July or August of last year, when I collected them all before I opened them up. And these, I want to say, went for like 25 bucks when I bought them, and I think they're still like 22, 25 bucks on their website. So if you want to try these out after you get them, they're actually a pretty decent MMA fight glove. I think my exact words, because they ranked in like the middle, if not slightly above the middle when I was reviewing them all, is that I said that these gloves are really good, but a few alterations and they could be phenomenal. And that's really what I believe about these gloves, is that they really do have a lot of shining lights, in my opinion. For me, they just fit very well. They do a really good job, especially for grapplers. But let's go into that in a couple minutes here. But overall, these are the Fuji version of the PFL fight gloves. So when we go into my exact model, what I bought, they only come in black and white. And that's exactly what you can see here. Our black and white model says PFL on the back. Looks like a pair of UFC gloves, basically, although I can tell you these are better. Right off the bat, I don't mind. And then I got these in 3XL because I do have wider palms and bigger hands and kind of swollen knuckles. So I tend to have bigger hands when I put my gloves on the inside with my hand wraps. So I wanted a decent amount of space, and this glove fits my hand very well. They do not come in lace-up. The last pair of fight gloves I knew that went into lace-up were Pride, and I don't think people do that anymore really. So these are Velcro closures. So you got a bunch of different sizing options, all the way from like double extra small to triple XL on the website. I think one or two of them had like an X across for sizing, and I imagine those things were like medium or large, but this is triple XL and it fits my hand pretty good. When we go into the look of the glove, like I said, you have a basic black glove that says LFA on the back, so you can see all the black engineered leather on the back, and that's all the way throughout the striking surface. That's all the way throughout the palm. Same thing when we go down here to the wrist strap. The only difference is you have your PFL logo with the crown on top, and then your PFL shield, Professional Fighters League, right there at the bottom, and that's like a cloth patch. And then here on the side you can see that it says 3XL. When we open it, it doesn't say anything on the inside, but you still have a black lining in there. The only thing that they do have is, just like the Century PFL, is that you have a slot right here in the center, and, or at the bottom rather, the center of the bottom, that's a little stretchy, so when you put your you can put the punch trackers in for when they fight, for the smart cage technology that they use. But overall, it's a very basic looking glove. Probably not going to be the longest video, although I can talk if I want to. But the piping is also black. Everything about it is black. It's a basic black and white glove, and that's the easiest way to explain it. The Velcro is black, the stitching's black, everything about it is black. When we go into the design and the build of the glove, it's also very simple. The entire glove is made out of an engineered leather, which is actually surprising because it feels like a real leather. It feels super, super good, and it even smells like a real leather. It doesn't smell like a fake leather at all, but you can still kind of, you know, admire that about this. I really like the material that they use. It's actually a very soft material, and there's a good amount over the knuckles too, so the stitching stays in really well. And it's also a very soft and supple type of engineered leather, which I really like. Honestly, if a lot of other fight gloves use something like this, I'd be happier. I actually like it more than the Ryzen fight gloves, which is crazy, because that's also a fake leather or engineered leather. But at the end of the day, this is all engineered everywhere on the wrist strap and everything, except for the interior lining and your cloth patch, and then of course your Velcro is not made out of that engineered leather. But when we go into the padding, it just says it has a foam padding, basically. It says shock absorbing foam padding, and when I feel it, it feels like a very thin layer of like high density foam, kind of like like you can feel it's a bit of a stiffer high density foam. It's definitely not a closed cell foam, I can tell that much, because it still breathes a little bit. You can see it takes a couple seconds to come back, but it's a very thin layer, and that's one solid mold, as you can see here, separate from here. But the nice thing you can see about this glove is that, like others, it curves the fingers down, so it puts you in a rested position so your fingers don't flare out. Although I did kind of prove in the last video, no matter what glove you have, boom, it'll stick it right out. But as far as resting it in that position, it does a really good job of that. The padding and the foam is all in the same exact spot. And it is a softer feel, and it can wedge pretty good too. And like I said, I thought it was closed cell at first, but when you go this way and you open it, you can see it breathe a little bit. It probably is just a really softer closed cell at the end of the day. I'm not going to cut the glove open to look at it, but it feels more like a softer high density foam. When you come down to the wrist strap, you can see that you actually have a decent sized wrist strap that actually does offer decent wrist protection, and it also opens the glove up very wide, which is always good. So it's really easy to put your hand right on the inside, and it slips in nice and well. So when I want to put my hand up right there, and that's it. I might have it on the wrong hand, actually. Oh, I gotta look real quick, sorry. Nope, I had it on the right hand. Very good. Okay, so when I put this glove in, it just slips in perfect, just like that. And that's what I love about it. And it's not because the glove is too big, because it's not. It fits my hand very well, and the wrist strap comes right up and under here on my wrist. And see how it kind of stabilizes it from going backwards too much, from going down, side to side, but I still have really good wrist mobility. And if I put the other one on too, you can definitely tell the jiu-jitsu guy really sat down and designed these, because the grips that you get on these and the mobility of your wrist and your fingers is awesome. Because usually when you have a uniform mold like this for the glove, you can definitely see that, like, the fingers don't necessarily want to move independently because of the padding, but my fingers still have complete and utter mobility. And I think the reason why is because the one fault that I don't like is you can see that these finger knuckles, the middle knuckle, is kind of out from the padding itself down here, right? Compared to here, our knuckles are covered here and here, but not so much here. So we can open and close our fingers very easily. And the amount of grips that you can get, whether it be your S grips, 8-finger grips, whatever you want to call them. I can even get a classic 3-finger grip that they call it. It's an old wrestling grip. When you come here, a 3-finger grip, I think is what they would say. So you have that, and then on top of it, your gable grips, palm-to-palm grips, your bar grips, butterfly grips, whatever you like to call them. And you can even get a decent basket grip here, or a tie grip, some people will call it like that. So the grips in these gloves, unrivaled as far as any MMA gloves that I've really used. I mean, the grips in these, absolutely phenomenal. It's perfect for a wrestler. It's perfect for a grappler. The striking aspect isn't terrible as far as hitting in the flush spot. You do kind of have to turn your wrist in the proper position, but what I don't like is that it doesn't cover these knuckles either. So if you wanted to, you could honestly still kind of have that bare knuckle effect by just doing that. So why punch with the padding when I can just whoom and maybe cut you that way, which is actually an old bare knuckle technique. People would be here and then rake that way actually and kind of try and cut you with those front knuckles. So that might be something that I'm a little concerned about as far as that goes. So if they just extended the padding a little bit further, like to the tips, that might be something that would be cool. The only thing I can think about that is that the grappling wouldn't be quite as free. Of course, like most professional fight gloves, your thumb is exposed, unlike amateur fight gloves have the thumb covered. In this case, this thumb is actually exposed, as you can see, and it gives you really good grip. And there's also tons of room, like I tell everyone, the way that the commission told me, I gotta take the glove off so I can try that. The way the commission explained it to me is that if you are able to fit 2 of your fingers in underneath your knuckles and then close your fist like this perfectly, and as you can see, my fist is entirely closed, it has plenty of room on the inside of the glove for a decent thick wrap if you need it as well. I also like how everything fits really well. They're very comfortable, and then the inside lining actually isn't that bad. You can see here that you got kind of like that felt material a little bit. It's kind of like suede almost that's going throughout here. The Velcro is really strong. And then on the inside, you just basically have your basic poly lining that's on the inside, and it's stretched pretty tight. It's not the roughest thing. It's there so it can keep the wraps on the inside, but it feels really good on my bare hands too. So overall, it fits really well. It's very comfortable. Wish the padding was a little better, and the wrist support still could be a little bit more. But you know, I think it's just because the wrist strap can come up higher underneath here. It does make it a little bit better. It keeps you in a nice, comfortable punch position as well. Overall, it's a pretty decent glove so far, so let's go ahead and go into the bag work so we can see these gloves in action. Alright, so when it comes to hitting the bag with the WSOF or PFL gloves, they feel really good on the knuckles, except that my middle knuckle kind of touches the bag every now and again. But overall, they are so light on my hand, it almost feels like you're not wearing anything at all, and it actually protects the top knuckles pretty good. And on top of it, you also get really good grips when you try and grip on the bag. They're definitely more of a grappler's glove than they are a striker's glove, but overall, hitting the bag with them, they're a decent bagman, and I do like hitting the pads and bags with these gloves overall. I think you would too, especially since they're so cheap now. I think you might want to try them. Alright, so when we look at the PFL gloves, you can see the nice crown, and we get good S grips, good gable grips, palm-to-palm grips, nice basket grips, bar grips and butterfly grips. It goes underneath the neck very good, over underhooks very easily as well, slips underneath the arms, and also looks very basic. It's just basically like every other glove out there. The promotion's logos on it. It's just a solid black glove. It's virtually identical as far as look to the UFC glove. The build is definitely different, but I think a lot of people would be like, oh, cool. Those are the same gloves that my favorite PFL fighter uses. All right, folks, so my final verdict on the Fuji PFL fight gloves are, like I said, I really like them. I think there's a lot of good things that this glove does, and I think if you just altered a few things to the design of it, you might have the best universal MMA fight glove in my opinion, because I just think this fits very well. The grappling aspect is amazing, and honestly the striking isn't that bad either. There's just a few things I wish I could change, but let's go ahead and talk about the positives first. Let's talk about that the engineered leather on this is really durable, really high quality for such a cheaper glove out there, and it smells and feels real. It doesn't feel fake at all, whereas some gloves out there you can feel it and you're like, yeah, that's definitely a fake leather. And like I said, it smells like a real leather too, which is crazy. It's very easy to clean and keep clean, and it's also very durable in that it doesn't crack or fade away or anything, because I've had these for about a year now. I've been using them on and off for over a year now after the video was made. So overall, they hold up really well, and I like how they fit. They're extremely comfortable. For me, I love how comfortable these are. When I put them on, they slip right on, and I'm all good to go. They strap really good, and you pull it over, and I put it underneath my wrist so it stabilizes my wrist a little bit more, and I got a very comfortable and flexible glove, especially for grapplers. I think this is a grappler's dream, this glove. That's my idea behind these, is that the grappling aspect of this glove is good. Where I wish it was a little better, the padding's not the worst, but it also kind of lines my knuckles up on my fingers instead of my actual like knuckles. So when I punch, I do feel like my fingertips are getting more, or my finger knuckles are getting more of the brunt of it compared to my knuckles like these. I mean, you really kind of have to curve your wrist down a little bit more to get that, which isn't the worst thing, especially if you know proper punching technique. It'll roll over and catch, but I feel like my fingers do take more of the force off, like hitting bags, pads. I haven't sparred in these, obviously, but the other thing is I just don't like that these knuckles are exposed. I think that just helps with the grappling aspect of it, but I wish that these knuckles were covered too, because, you know, I just don't like that, and that it would probably really cut someone up. I've seen that happen before. In sparring, you know, accidentally with those RDX sparring gloves, when they're too small in someone's hands, like these knuckles come out, and then when they punch, it like cuts and scrapes like that. That's why bare knuckle is so dangerous. So that's one thing I wish they added to it, was maybe the fingertips here. I think the interior lining feels pretty good. I think they could keep that. I just think maybe the one thing I'd like to change is, instead of having just nothing at the back of the wrist for wrist support, granted you could put the wrist strap right up there, what I would do is maybe just put like a bar, like a stabilization bar right there, so you can still have a small bar to like stabilize your wrist a little bit more. I know you're gonna wrap your hands up good, and some people don't like too much of a bulky glove, but I think a tiny little bar here on the back wouldn't hurt it that much at all, and I think that would actually be really beneficial to a lot of fighters out there that maybe have those wrist issues. And I don't think it would compromise your grappling at all. I don't think it would get underneath the neck any worse. I don't think it would compromise your performance at all. I think it would work just fine. That's my opinion. But I know some people might like just having the flimsy wrist at the bottom, especially since it's a fight glove. You're going to be taped. You're going to have a really nice guy wrapping your hands, especially if you're in the PFL. At this point, someone wrapping your hands should know what they're doing, and they'll protect your wrist, and they know what works for your body. But in my opinion, because of that, I think the fingers definitely are at risk of breaking, and I think the wrist could be at risk for breaking, but not nearly as much as, like, say, the UFC glove or even the 1FC glove, because those are just so stiff. The padding here is actually decently, like, it's just very thin, so there's obviously not much between you and the target, but it is decently soft and protective over my knuckles. It feels good. It kind of feels like a gel at the end of the day, if I had to be honest. It feels more like a gel, but I can also feel that it is more, I know it's not a gel. It feels like a gel, but it is a foam. Like I said, I think it's some type of very smushed open cell foam, kind of like what you'd see in the Ryzen gloves. But I think what would make this glove even better is that if they did pad it a little bit more at the knuckles, raise it about another half an inch or something, put a little bit more just for my knuckles, and it's not going to compromise me knocking someone out. If people can knock someone out with gigantic, compared to these gigantic 10-ounce boxing gloves in fights, what's to say that if you just add a little bit more padding that you can't knock your opponent out in MMA either? So that's my opinion. But overall, those are really my biggest complaints, is that maybe on a safety aspect it could be a little better, but I think they're very well made. I saw a few reviews that people said that when they showed up the glove was all smushed and stuff, and that just didn't happen to me, so maybe they just had bad handling of packages. I don't know, but overall the Fuji PFL fight glove is really good. Do I like it more than the Sentry one? Not as far as safety goes. I think Sentry definitely has the leg up on the safety aspect. I think the wrist support and the knuckle padding on those are better, but those are a lot stiffer than these. I think these are probably the best MMA gloves for grapplers out there as far as fight gloves go. And I definitely think if you're a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guy that's like getting into MMA and you're not going to like do heavy sparring yet and you want a good grappler's glove, I think the Fuji version of the PFL fight glove is actually really good. It's a really good option. So with that said, I know a lot of people are going to ask me what I rate these. And that was tough. You know, I think I'd have to give them a good 8 out of 10. And the reason why I say 8 out of 10 is because there are a lot of positives to this glove. I just think the big negatives is I wish like I said, that the padding covered these knuckles here, which they don't. but the padding does keep my knuckles nice and supported. I don't feel like my hand is going to break when I hit the bags. They feel like a really solid bag mitt, which I like. And I like hitting pads with these too because, like I said, they feel like a pretty solid bag mitt compared to, say, some other actual bag mitts out there. They're not too bulky. They're not too, they're not padded enough for you to get hit. Sorry, I felt like I just had a stroke for a second there. But the padding's not too little to where I'm going to damage my hand at all. The padding, I think, does a good job. I just wish there was a little bit more. But overall, I like the curvature. I like that it keeps it rested. Although, like I said, no matter what glove you have on, it's very easy to just flare your hands out. And if you don't believe me, even with the curvature of these fingers, all I got to do, strap this tight. So this is no fault of any MMA glove out there, right? You see how my fingers are rested down? All I gotta do, boop, and there you go. Now I can poke you right in the eye. So that's any MMA glove out there. I don't think there is a singular design out there. It is 100% on the fighter. I think there are some gloves that make it harder for you to keep your hands closed, like the UFC gloves. I don't think it necessarily promotes you to open. It just keeps it hard to close. These don't do that though. You can open and close your hand very easy to go into a punch position, very easy to go into grappling. Very light on your hands. They say they come in 6 ounces, but I don't even know if they're that heavy. I didn't weigh these, unfortunately, but most professional fight gloves are 4 to 6 ounces, so that's probably right on the money. I think they're much better than the UFC fight glove. I think they're much better than a lot of fight gloves out there. I like them more than the Leone fight gloves. I like these more than the Wawanos. I like them more than the not the PFL Centuries, because those have their own good things too, but I like these more than the One Championship. I wish if they just had a little bit more padding on it, I'd say they're right there with the Ryzens, but that's why I like the Ryzens, because they protect your hand just a little bit more. But overall, these are the best grappling MMA fight gloves I've tried out of the bunch so far. So with that said, guys, if you have any questions about these, like I said, you can still get them on Fuji's website. They go for about 25 bucks, and I think that's worth it if you want a decent MMA fight glove. And you know what? I'd rather get these over, say, like the Sandoval Essentials. I mean, because the Sandoval Essential, like not the sparring gloves, get those if you're going to spar, but like those are not made as good as these. I'm shocked that this is actually an engineered leather and how durable that they're made. And overall, I think they did a really good job, and I wonder if it's just a money thing is why PFL didn't go with Fuji again. But I really do think if they took like the Century PFL padding and wrist support and put it into this glove, it'd be my favorite MMA glove ever as far as fight gloves go. But unfortunately it doesn't. So I think one day, who knows, maybe someone will sit down and we'll design one, but who knows. But at the end of the day, guys, like I said, if you have any questions, comments, concern, put them in the comment section below. Message me and let me know what you want me to review next. We still have, for the video, we have the Leone gloves and the Owano gloves. I'm also going to review the RDX fight gloves because I want them to be in that lineup as well, because those are actually pretty good fight gloves. But at the end of the day, guys, I'm really excited to almost be concluded with the series almost a year later. I really love that everyone's been really engaged with it, and people were asking about these just the other day. So I hope you got to watch it. But with that said, guys, thank you so much for watching this episode, and as always, I'll see you on the next episode, and have a great day.